Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for dialing in for our webinar. So you've started a freelance business, now what? My name is Anjali and I am the community coordinator at Noumena. At Noumena, we help freelancers like you grow your business. Today, our special guest, Laura Briggs, will be discussing all things you need to know if you are just starting on your freelancing journey. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the chat window. We'll address them during the Q&A. Also, we'll be recording today's session, which will be available on the Noumena platform under on-demand webinars. By the end of our time today, we hope you feel more equipped to take your freelance business to the next level. And I'm going to hand it to Laura whenever you're ready.
Okay, perfect. It just says you need to give me screen sharing ability.
Perfect. Let me just take. Oh, I should hit.
Okay, all right. There we go. All right, everybody. So welcome to today's session where we're going to talk about some of the things you need to have in the back of your mind as you are transitioning from just starting a freelance business, where the majority of people's concerns are around finding clients and just sort of getting that initial traction, into really treating your business like a business owner or a CEO would, so that you can set it up to scale, whatever that looks like for you. So it doesn't matter if you're keeping this as a side hustle or if your freelance business is something that you are hoping to build into a full-time venture, potentially leave your job for. You're going to focus on many of the same things. It's just that your goals are going to be a little bit different. The hours you have to put into your business, the revenue goals that you set are going to be different as well. So if we haven't met before, I'm Laura. I've been working with Noumena for some time and have interacted with quite a few of you in these sessions and on the web and the mobile app as well. And I have been freelancing. This will be year number 11. I am a content writer and digital marketing strategist, and my business is kind of split. So I still do about 80% work for freelance clients and about 20% creating resources for other freelancers who are looking to scale. So let's talk about some of the freelance business fundamentals that shift when you are a beginner. When you are a beginner, there is so much that you are still attempting to figure out as a freelancer. You may not know your unique value proposition. You may not have a niche. You may have only worked on a handful of projects. You may be struggling to turn one-time clients into repeat clients or recurring revenue clients. And so a lot of times we have different ways that we approach getting new clients and new business as a beginning freelancer, because we're still trying to figure that out. We don't know who we like working with and don't yet. We're hoping that we speed up our time and what it takes us to do marketing and even to do client work. But you kind of have to have that similar experience for every new freelancer, which is a little bit of finding your footing. But after you have been doing freelancing for a little while, or probably have worked on your first, 5 to 6 projects, you have a decent idea of the direction that you're going, and you should be starting to build some of those sort of processes and systems that can really help you scale your freelance business. One of the most important things that happens as you transition from being a beginning freelancer to a more experienced freelancer is the way that you show up as a business owner. And I have seen this play out over and over again with all kinds of different freelancers. A lot of us carry our employee mindset over into freelancing. So no matter what industry you've worked in, as an employee, for the most part, your boss sets your rate or your salary, right? You have some negotiation capability, but for the most part, it's kind of set by the market. It's kind of determined by what the company is willing to pay you. The customer or your boss is almost always right. You're stepping into a situation where someone else has made a lot of the leadership decisions for you about the company's mission, vision, values, who they work with, what they sell. And it's very different when you bring that mindset over into working as a freelancer. So a lot of freelancers get started where they value themselves based on what their employer valued them as previously. So you might step into your first couple of freelance projects and say, well, my last job paid me $30 an hour. So I'm going to charge $30 an hour as a freelancer to start. And then what typically happens is freelancers realize, hey, I'm actually doing this as an independent contractor. I have other expenses. I'm paying taxes out of this $30, and my work just may be worth more than that, right? So one thing I caution you against is bringing too much of that employee mindset into working as a freelancer. It's totally okay as a beginner because you're just getting your footing and you're trying to figure out, what can I charge? What kind of clients can I get? Do I need to up level my skills? And so that's okay in the beginning, but ultimately you want to transition away from things where you're accepting every client at every rate on projects you may or may not like just because it's what's available. Because so many freelancers start that way, you can kind of be tricked into thinking, oh, this is a viable business model. I may not love, like, let's say you're a graphic designer and you're like, I don't love working on logos, but boy, I keep winning these logo contests and designing that. So I'm going to stick with that, right? So it's okay to use this experience to decide what you do and don't like and where you'd like to go with your business from there, and making that shift from kind of like an employee where you just aren't as confident and you're not as sure of your business systems and processes. It can be really dangerous for growing your business. I like to tell freelancers that it is totally possible to build your business to $80,000 or even $100,000 a year as a freelancer with the wrong clients. It is almost impossible to do it beyond that point with the wrong clients. But what happens is so many people get in this cycle of, I'll do any work for anybody, even if it's poorly paid, even if the client is difficult to work with, that when you hit that $80,000 or $100,000 a year mark, you're miserable and you don't care that you've achieved that at all, right? Because you're like, I hate my business. I built a business I hate. So it's really important to start thinking about these things now, because this is really what separates people from like who can build this thriving freelance business, who are happy with it, and those who are not happy with it. So let's start. I always encourage all freelancers, even if you've only worked on 2 or 3 projects, if you are getting traction, meaning that you are landing projects, you are finishing those projects, you are getting good feedback from clients, even if it's a small number, it's time to start thinking about what you want this business to look like. A lot of us come out of school, whether that's high school or college or grad school or whatever, and you're like, I need to accept any job that is offered to me. I need to take any employment opportunity that's available to me, rather than thinking about, how do I want my work to benefit my life? A lot of us, like, our career options just look so different than our parents or grandparents. We're not going to go work in one place for 30 years and collect a pension and leave. We're probably not even going to work in the same place for 5 years, to be realistic, right? We may even change industries or careers entirely. So when you run your own business as a freelancer, you need to think about what that looks like for you, because it may be totally different than the freelancer who is sitting next to you. It could be a different experience. One person's definition of a thriving freelance business may be, I work 15 hours a week, I make $4,000 a month, and I'm happy with that, staying in that consistency. Another freelancer might say, I am really aiming for those 10K months as a freelancer. I'm willing to put in 30 to 40 hours a week at the start to make that happen. And another freelancer may say, listen, I only want to work on projects with nonprofits. So I know I'm turning down a lot of money opportunities there and narrowing my client pool, but that's what's important for them. So I want you to start brainstorming, what does your ideal business look like for you? And here are some factors that may go into that. How many hours per week do you work? What kinds of projects do you work on? And what are your revenue goals? And what's interesting about this is it's different for everyone. You can decide what this looks like for you. And one of the coolest things about freelancing is that it can work at almost any level. You only have 5 hours a week, that's fine. You have 50 hours a week, that's great. You want to stay at $2,000 months because this is your side hustle, do it. It's so much more capable of scaling and on your schedule and flexibility that it's very much unlike many other businesses that require a huge capital infusion to get started and a really long time of making no profit before you turn things around. So this primary question that you take from your beginning experiences is, what do I want my business to look like? And you're picking up clues from the projects and clients that you work with now. I know for me, my last job that I held before jumping into freelancing full time, the company president had a rule that the customer was always right. the customer was not always right. Sometimes they were wrong. Sometimes they were rude. Sometimes they were difficult to work with. So when I started working for myself, I kind of carried that idea of, well, these people are paying me to do work, so this is what I have to tolerate. And very quickly, I realized there are some people that, or projects that I just don't want to work with or on. There are some things that are too difficult. There are some people that are rude. And as a business owner, you get to decide that. So it's not like you need to have the answer today. And this is something that will evolve. I've gone from working 50 to 60 hours a week to hit that first $100,000 mark to changing my goals to be less revenue focused and more about staying at 25 hours a week or less over the years. So know that it can always change and there's no wrong answer. But the primary question is, what do you want your business to look like? And then we set everything up from what that looks like for you, right? And even this idea of working 9 to 5, you don't need to do that, right? I primarily work 10 to 3 because that's the time of day that I feel best about doing it. So be mindful of what are you carrying over from that employee mindset? What early clues are you getting about who you like to work with? What kinds of projects you like to work on? So another important decision that, again, you don't need to make today, but I do want you to have in your mind is whether you are building a solo freelance business or you want to go the agency route. You can go back and forth. It's kind of difficult to recalibrate your business doing that. But a solo freelance entrepreneur is someone who wants to do the work themselves. Maybe you have a couple of subcontractors, like you have people who help you with overflow work, or you have a virtual assistant or a proofreader who double checks your work or something like that. But really, they are the primary person doing 90% of the work in the business. They're getting the clients, they're doing the work, they're handling the marketing, all of that. An agency is more where you are the owner of a company that places projects between your subcontractors and your clients. And you may be doing some of the work yourself, but it's more designed to handle a bigger bandwidth. There are pros and cons to both. And there's a whole chapter on this in my book, Six Figure Freelancer, because it's really about where you want your business to go and your personality traits, right? So you'll kind of lean into one or the other, and you can certainly try it. I ran my freelance business as an agency for a year and realized that I really didn't like being the manager. I really didn't like having to be on top of people about deadlines and invoices and all of that stuff. And so I went back to being a true solopreneur freelancer and have stayed there most of the time. But there's no wrong way. They just look different about how you build them. So as you grow your freelance business and you're asking yourself this question, what do I want this to look like? Then we turn our focus to the kinds of things you can optimize in your business. It is definitely overwhelming to be a new freelancer because you're essentially the vice president of every department in your company and you don't know what works yet. So you're doing all the things and it's probably very time consuming and it's exhausting. But over time, you want to start thinking about what can I optimize in my business? How do I make this easier? How do I automate this? How do I hire somebody to help me with this? How do I make this process faster? There's all of those are different approaches to answering that same question. But things like marketing, right? So here's an example. As a new freelancer, you may be marketing in only one place, which is not good, right? Not to put all your clients or all those eggs in one basket. You might also be marketing in all of the places. You may be spending like hours per week on LinkedIn and cold pitching and other freelance job boards and doing all these things. And that's not the best use of your time either. So start to look at where you're getting your clients from. My guess is that they probably come from the same 2 or 3 sources. That's where you want to optimize. Maybe you eliminate some of the other things or you streamline them. So here's an example. I'm on a lot of newsletters that deliver me freelance writing job leads. I set them to go into a specific folder in my email, and I only look at them during the days that I have set aside marketing time to scan for new opportunities. So that's one way that they're not even in my top 3 sources of where my freelance clients come from. So I put most of my effort towards the sources that drive me actual business, previous clients and referrals, LinkedIn and Upwork, and stick with that. But I do make sure that I have some time, like an hour a week, I'll read through all these newsletters kind of back to back. So that's just one example of optimizing your marketing. Maybe marketing for you is something that's really hard for you to stick with. And so optimizing may just be that you put that time on your calendar every Monday morning for 90 minutes to research, to send pitches, to communicate with people, just so that it's consistently getting done. What happens with a lot of freelancers is they get to a point where they're busy and they stop marketing, and then all their client work dries up, and now they're or even months behind. Looks like somebody may need to mute. So another thing to optimize are systems and project management. At the beginning of my business, I kept track of everything on a yellow legal pad because maybe I only had 2 or 3 projects at a time. But as this gets more complex, you're going to need something like Trello, Asana, even a Google Doc that has, bullet points of your projects that you're working on, because you don't want to drop the ball when it comes to deadlines. So you need to start developing some systems and project management. Systems can even include things like questions that you ask clients and or information that you need to accurately give someone a quote. I get leads from my freelance writing website, and 99% of the time, the person never puts in there what it is that they want written. They'll just put something like, I need more content for my website. So I was like, I'm typing the same questions over again. What type of content? How long? Is it for SEO? Are there other materials I need to look at? And so just having a Google Doc with those questions that I can send back to someone, or a form I can build on my website that they need to fill that out before contacting me, that's a system that's saving me time. And it's also standardizing things as we go. You also want to optimize achieving client goals. You want to stay consistent with the level of client service that you are delivering for people that you work with. So are you meeting objectives? Are you having difficulties in the project managing of the clients, right? So this happens a lot when all of our clients think differently about how they're going to bring us into their business. And we need to be prepared to respond to keep things organized and relatively the same. So if you have a client who emails you a lot, how are you achieving the goal of reducing that or getting on top of that? Are you building a project management, Trello board for them? Are you doing a weekly recap call so they can just save their questions, for the call? How are you achieving those client goals without being bombarded by over communicators? And then also your revenue markers. How can we optimize how you're working towards your goals? Like I mentioned with marketing, a lot of times freelancers get busy, then they don't do any marketing at all, and then their income takes a significant dip because they haven't done anything to keep their pipeline full. And that's a major problem, because then you're behind, and it leads to the feast or famine cycle, where you're just kind of like, you barely make it one month and the next month you're super busy. So how are you setting revenue markers that you can achieve? I used to track my income monthly as a freelancer, but then I found I would really beat myself up if there was a month where I was on vacation or I was sick and my revenue was a little bit lower than otherwise expected. So I track mine on a quarterly basis and then just divide it among the months to kind of see what my average across those months is. And as long as I'm hitting that marker, I'm fine with that. But it also tells you more about what you need to do in order to market, right? So if your goal is $5,000 months and you're currently at $1,500 months, you need to be doing more marketing. So it kind of feeds back into this system of, all right, my goal is $5,000 months. I have to do more than just say that, right? I have to optimize in my business. I need to send 3 cold pitches every single week and then do follow-up from last week's 3 cold pitches, or whatever those numbers are for you. But it helps to keep you accountable. So we've been talking about this a little bit already, but this often comes as a surprise to other freelancers. You need to be marketing every single week. I do this even when I am fully booked. It looks very different when I am fully booked, but I am always marketing my freelance business. Freelancers often tell me in response to this, well, what if I get more projects than I can handle? Or, and it's like, we don't worry as much enough about the reverse, which is, what if you don't have enough work to hit your revenue goals or to pay yourself this month? That's far more of a realistic concern that actually happens to freelancers. If you're busy, you'll use a wait list, or you'll fire your most difficult or lowest paying client. It's really not the end of the world. And a lot of times when we're marketing, it's not like you pitch a client and they write back and they're like, that day, like, hey, send me a contract. Sure, let's get started. Usually there's some lag time there. So I'm always marketing. When you do not have enough business, your job is mostly marketing. If you have like one client, 80% of the time that you spend in a given week should be marketing, and 20% on client work. Your goal, flip those numbers, right? So that you're mostly doing client work and a little bit marketing. So when I'm fully booked, my marketing is super easy. I scan those newsletters that come to my inbox. I do a quick look on LinkedIn and Upwork for relevant leads and jobs that I might want to apply for freelance writing. And I post a couple of times either on my freelance writing blog or on my LinkedIn profile about the services that I do. When I'm fully booked, that marketing process takes like 30 to 40 minutes a week. But if I don't have enough clients, or I know that a big project is wrapping up soon, I'm putting a lot more effort, probably like 5 to 8 hours per week into marketing. So it adjusts, but it really depends on where you're at now. And that's why, I talked in the previous slide about what's your revenue goal? What's your revenue markers, so that we can say, wow, I'm only at, $2,000 a month right now. What am I going to do? How many hours do I need to spend marketing, or how many pitches do I need to send this week? Or how many gigs do I need to apply to? How many previous clients do I need to follow up with? That really helps keep you accountable. I used to do a lot of coaching calls about marketing with freelancers, and they would always put in the form when they signed up for the call, I don't have enough clients. And so my first question was always the same. How many pitches did you send last week? Or how much marketing did you do? Almost always the answer was, I sent one pitch, not really any, it's sporadic. And it's like, that's the problem, the marketing. So when you do it every single week, it just becomes second nature. And it's this pipeline that builds on itself, right? So for the longest time, I would post every single week on LinkedIn about my services. And I posted 2 blogs every month on my website. And it felt like no one was listening. It's like, what is the point of doing this? I'm not getting any traction. But it developed a habit. And then what happened is, all of those things snowballed. And so LinkedIn's SEO algorithm started showing my profile to clients who are ideal for me. And I started getting a lot more cold leads through my website because I had built up the SEO on my own website with those monthly blogs. So it does take time, but it's definitely something that you want to be doing on an ongoing basis. I would far rather turn down a client I don't want to work with than not have enough business and be scrambling and end up accepting that client because I didn't do any marketing. So always market yourself. The amount of time you spend doing it and how much marketing you do varies based on your schedule and where you're at financially. But even when I do not have room for clients, I'm always putting myself out there a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about client management best practices. That's kind of the overarching theme of this whole training today, is that you need to make a shift from how you started to how you scale, because you can build that successful freelance business with all the wrong clients and then end up burned out and miserable and wanting to quit. I don't want you to do that. I want you to start implementing things with clients where you get pickier and pickier as you go along. Once you have traction, you're getting clients, you're marketing, your clients are happy, you're finishing projects on time. That's an indication that you know what you're doing. And now you don't have to accept some of those lower paying projects or the clients that were a little bit difficult. So we need to start thinking about what we're going to shift in our business to make this easier. You're going to have less and less time to handle doing this administrative stuff and the marketing tasks as you get busier. So you need to streamline or automate those repeated tasks. Anything that saves you time. I have a template pitch in Google Docs when I'm sending cold email pitches. I keep that and just copy and paste into my email browser and add the personalization that I need to from there. That has streamlined that task, right? I can't fully automate it, but it's streamlined. So it's a lot faster when I go to do it again. I have all my quick links saved for all of my bylined work. So if a client asks, I can go say, okay, here's from legal, here's from the military space. It's easier for me to send that information when someone requests it. So automate or streamline any repeated tasks that you can, but also start to work only with target clients. And this is very hard to do when you have made a habit of working with anyone who offered you an opportunity in the beginning. Start noticing, what clients do I like working with? Which projects really lit me up and were a joy to complete? Which things dragged me down? And do those things have anything in common, right? Are there certain projects where you're like, I just really didn't enjoy working on that because maybe it was the client who was difficult. So how can I file that away as a learning lesson for the future to hopefully not work with a client like that again? Or maybe it was just the project. Like, let's say that you were involved in a project that took 3 months, and by the end of it, you were so sick of it and wanted to be done. That's a sign that maybe you enjoy shorter projects. You can use all of that information. And as that happens, I just tell people, like, I've changed my business model. I no longer work on these big projects anymore. I handle projects that are X, Y, and Z. So you'll evolve over time, and it will definitely make things easier for you. But working only with target clients just makes your life so much easier. I have a role in my business. I will not work with clients who are rude or condescending. From the moment somebody contacts me, I'm not openly asking them that. I am looking for clues as to whether they are rude or condescending, because I want to weed them out and screen them away from working with me as soon as possible. So I'm asking in those calls, tell me about the last time you hired a freelancer. Why didn't it work out? I'm asking about their work style. I'm asking what an ideal outcome for this project looks like if we were to work together. And I'm listening for those clues. Are you my target client? Do you trust my expertise? Are you a decent person to communicate with? Are you reasonable with edit requests, or are you going to nitpick every little thing to the point where it drives me crazy? When you only have target clients on your roster, it's like you feel like you've graduated from this beginning freelance level where you had to maybe work with some less than ideal clients or at less than ideal pay. And you start realizing that everyone on your roster, or most of the clients that you're working with, are good people giving you projects you enjoy working on at rates that you are happy to accept. That's a beautiful thing to wake up to as a business owner. And you'll notice when you're not in alignment with that, if you're feeling dread around certain projects or clients, if you procrastinate until the last minute, something's off about that project, whether it's the person, it's the project, you're just not into it. If you don't look forward to communicating with the client, if you rush to get things done because you just want it off your plate, it's so different when you're really working on things that you enjoy. So this doesn't mean you need to go out today and fire all of those clients who aren't ideal for you, but I would keep lists of my clients and which projects I enjoyed and which ones I didn't. And then I could also use that as motivation for my marketing. So I once had a client I'd worked with for 2 years. They were great, except their invoicing procedure changed every single month. It meant that at times I was not paid on time. Sometimes I was not paid at all. There were constant glitches. And so I said, you know what, if they can't get this together in the next 60 days, I'm firing them as a client, and I'm moving forward and finding someone else. That gave me the fire to go, I need to get out there and market. If I'm going to replace a client that brings in $4,000 a month in revenue, I have to do more work to make that happen. And then that's one way of kind of having guilt-free feelings over parting ways with someone who is not ideal. As you grow, your business can also get more specific. You can choose which policies you have in your business. Late fees on your contracts is an example. Client minimums, right? Maybe you're like, I don't accept projects that are less than $500, period, across the board, $1,000, whatever that number is for you. But I learned, like, if someone would give me one project for $300, I'd spend all this time like learning about them and their business and have to learn their invoicing procedures and their revision requests. And I was like, that wasn't worth it for $300. If it was, $1,000 every single month on a 6-month or 12-month contract, sure, I'm willing to put in that upfront work. But you can choose to do things like client minimums and decide whether you're going to work with somebody or not based on that. You can also decide the quality of the relationship. If someone's just difficult to work with, if they bombard you with 25 emails as you're trying to turn things in, if they make you show up to daily or weekly meetings where you don't need to be there because you're a freelancer and it's wasting your time, look at your clients based on the quality of the relationship. I'm always trying to make sure that I'm working with clients who have a business that I can get behind, right? Like, it's not unethical or weird. Ideally, it's doing something that's putting some good out into the world, helping some group, addressing some social issue. And they're easy to work with. They pay on time. I'm just looking for all these things about what is the quality of the relationship? How do they fit into my business? And you'll also, unfortunately, I hope your bad experiences will be limited, but you will go through some experiences with clients where you will learn lessons that will teach you things for the future. Those are the experiences that you'll no longer tolerate. And so when you have an experience with a client that falls apart or is bad for any reason, don't beat yourself up about it, but pause and look at it and say, is there anything I could have done differently here? Sometimes the answer may be yes. Oh, you know what? They did mention on our intake call that they fired their last 6 freelancers. Probably not a problem with the freelancers, probably more likely the client is the common denominator here. Let me file that away for the future. So when I show up to my next calls with potential clients, I'm listening for those red flags that I can say, not a fit. And if there wasn't anything that you could have done, then just think about ways that you may be able to protect yourself from that in the future. This is such a weird example, but I had a handful of clients in my early freelance days where I would turn something in and they wouldn't give any good feedback. They would just say, I just don't like it. It just doesn't work for me. It's not my style. And so I kept going, well, how can, as a writer, can I make edits to something if you don't tell me something specific? Like, you got to say the style's too formal, make it a little more informal, or I don't like paragraph 2 because of this. So I put a clause in all of my contracts going forward that my clients have read all of my writing samples provided to them and agree that what I create will be substantially similar in style, tone, and voice. That kind of got me out of this cycle of people being like, well, I just don't like the style. You know, like, if you don't like my style, I'm giving you that chance to figure that out at the beginning and to opt out and say, like, I got to go find somebody else who better suits what I needed. But I only knew to put that in my contracts because I had bad experiences. So I hope yours are few, but when they happen, don't dwell on it too long. Just try to look at it as a learning experience. Could I have done anything different in this situation? Can I do anything different in the future? And if the answer to both of those is no, and you're just like, I just got unlucky, this client seems decent, but then they didn't pay me, like, okay, how can I protect myself in the future? Maybe I go from asking for 25% deposit to a 50% deposit or full pay up front, right? So everything, you're just kind of quickly running through this like exit survey in your mind of, could this have been any different? So I will jump shortly into any questions that you all might have, but I'm really excited to tell you something that Noumena is coming out with very shortly that I think is just going to be awesome, because there's something about being in a group with like-minded freelancers, even in different industries and different locations, where you're all trying to work on the common goal of building a sustainable business and taking your company to the next level. So the Rise Growth Program, you'll hear more information about this coming up very shortly, but it is an awesome 1-year training and mentoring program that is really designed to help you take your business to the next level. You're going to get mentoring from industry experts. You're going to get personalized feedback. You're going to network with your peers in the group. You're going to hear what's working for other people and what isn't. And it's really designed to help you put all of the different mindset and strategy components of what it takes to run a successful freelance business in place. So I will share this last slide, which is you can learn more about the Rise Growth Program by joining the Noumena community at noumena.pro. And then you can look more at the program details there. It's under the Rise Growth Program Noum, and then you can apply from there. I hope to see you potentially inside. Noumena is a great company and really committed to helping freelancers build the most successful version of their business, whatever that looks like for them. So, a lot of information dumped on you. What kinds of questions do people have about where they're at with their freelance business and kind of where they want to go from here?
Thank you, Laura. So anyone just shout out any questions you want. You can also put it in the chat. But yeah, feel free to, there's so much information, so much valuable information that I learned. So anyone have any questions?
Hi, this is Erica. I have a question. I'm wondering, what is Noumena as a business? What do you guys do?
I'll let you handle that one.
Okay, no, perfect. Yeah. So Noumena is our whole point is to help freelancers grow their business through helping them gain business skills, but also we have financial products as well that can help you expand your business. Whether that means you need equipment for your business and we can help you pay for that, or whether you need, coaching. We're basically a resource for freelancers. That is the best way to describe it.
Thanks.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, Bethany asks, how often should you make new goals for your business? Is there a place to see benchmarks for other freelancers in your industry? Two great questions. So, how often you set goals will depend on where you're at in your business. If you are more on the newer side of things, you've worked on maybe 8 to 10 projects or even not up to that point. I would say you should be setting goals more on a monthly basis because it really helps you stay accountable to be setting goals more frequently. As your business scales, I would focus on things more at a quarterly level. Like you might have yearly goals of like, I want to make 50K this year, or I only want to work X many hours this year, but break that down into shorter, I call them 90-day sprints, because there are things that I want to achieve at the end of the 90 days. And then I can look back at that and say, okay, if that's January, February, March, what am I accomplishing in January to get closer to that? What am I completing by the end of February? That is a little bit more achievable for busier freelancers who are scaling. As far as benchmarks, so every year Upwork puts out a report. MBO Partners also does a regular report about freelancers, just kind of asking freelancers across all industries, like how many hours they work, do they feel confident about the future, how much money are they making, how many of them are doing this full time versus not. Because there's so much variation in freelancers, it's really hard to see benchmarks. And this is another reason that I don't encourage you to ever like go into a Facebook group or other community of freelancers and be like, what do you charge? Because you will get answers for the same thing of $5, $500, $300. There's just variation based on people's experience, their niche, what they want their freelance business to look like. So I encourage you to look for communities and places where you define what winning looks like for you. And then you can kind of get a sense from other freelancers who are similar to you. Like, let's say that you're a virtual assistant who works 20 hours a month. Your goals and your benchmarks are going to look very different from the virtual assistant who runs an agency and has 6 subcontractors. So it's very hard to find specific data, but it's good to network with other freelancers because you can hear how they're doing it. You can hear how they have approached similar problems, and then you can internalize that and think about, how does that apply to my business? Oh, here's, a full-time agency owner who cut their marketing down to 2 hours a week. Are there lessons I can pull from that apply to my part-time freelance business? So there's not like necessarily benchmarks per se that are, I just don't think they're applicable across all freelancers, but there are definitely places you can go to learn more. Oh, wow, we have some good questions here. So this is another one for you. This is from Lisa. Does Noumena have tools for attracting clients? I send out proposals for children's book illustration projects and nobody gets back to me.
So I think Bethany should answer this question, but Bethany, are you there?
Yes. Hey.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And Lisa, we do have mentorship and several like resources we've created on similar things. The first thing, just having a marketing background, you could send us your pitch that you're making, and we have a team that would be happy to look at it and maybe give you pointers. Because I know sometimes, making a pitch, it's all about who you can reach and get people to, click on your email in the first place. So we have a team of people that could help you there. And then, you're always welcome to post in the community. We have so many, I know of just off the top of my head, 5 other children's book authors that have been published, and I could connect you with them as well. And, you could post in the community and get feedback that way as well. But I can reach out to you offline and set you up with some of those resources.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Audrey asks, what are some tips on how to set your rate or cost for services? Keep it simple at the beginning. A lot of people will spin their wheels for weeks and never actually commit, and then it becomes like a reason why they're not marketing because they don't have a rate. Start with this. Choose an hourly rate that feels comfortable to you. Don't choose anything under $20 an hour, right? Like that, even for beginners, you can charge more than that. And I know that not everybody wants to stick with hourly, but this is our baseline, right? So you start with an hourly rate, and then you think about, are there any additions I need to incorporate into this hourly rate because I have advanced industry experience, education, certifications, I've worked for a big name client, right? So even a freelance beginner, let's say they spent 10 years doing copywriting for Disney, they're not a beginner. They may be a beginning copywriter as a freelancer, but they're bringing in 10 years of corporate experience. So they're not going to start at $30 an hour. They might say, all right, I'm comfortable starting at $40 an hour, but then boost that up and say, oh, wait, I have a master's degree. Oh, wait, I did all of this copywriting for a major corporation that people would recognize the name of. So start with that. And then most beginners stick with hourly just because it's easier and you don't know how long it's going to take you in the beginning. Ultimately, you can use that information to transfer over to a flat rate service. You might say, I figured out that to design a logo or to make a 3-page website or write 1,000 words takes me 4 hours. So I'm taking my general hourly rate, multiplying that by 4, just to give you a baseline, right? And you can raise it or lower it as you need to, but that's like the simplest way to get started. Okay, Rachel, how do you reach out to global clients? How do you resolve payments from overseas clients? I would reach out to global clients the same way that you reach out to clients in whatever country you live in. Just know that there's a substantial time difference depending on where you're reaching out. So sometimes it's harder to work with global clients because of that, because you're not available for any meetings or there's just a lot of back and forth that kind of happens with time change issues. There are a number of tools out there to accept payments from overseas clients. I think they've changed the name of it, but it used to be called TransferWise is one of them. And I know there are others out there. And that's the kind of question that's great to ask in a community of freelancers because someone else has probably accepted payments from overseas clients. Jamie, what marketing channels have worked best? This is different for every freelancer. So what you need to do as a freelancer is go out and try things, try it enough to get some reasonable data to see if this is really working for you or not, and then focus on the ones that bring you most of your clients. So you need to, like, let's say you do like a 30-day marketing challenge just for yourself. And you might say, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and send connection requests and pitches to 3 people 3 times a week for a month. I'm going to see if I get any traction from that. If it is nothing but radio silence, maybe LinkedIn isn't the platform for you. But I think it really also depends on your service. Like this is why there are no universal answers for anything freelancing, because it really depends on the service that you offer, where you're at, what kind of clients you work with, and where your message is going to resonate best. I always think about, where are my clients spending time? Is it in their email inbox? Am I most likely to get my client by sending them a really well-written cold email? Or are they hanging out on LinkedIn? Are they hanging out on Twitter? Where are they spending time that I can get myself in front of them? Like if you work for local companies and not mostly online clients, that might be your chamber of commerce or your local Rotary Club, where you offer to go in and give a presentation about digital marketing, blah, 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 your service, explained in great detail. So it just depends so much, but don't make any decisions until you really put yourself out there and can say, yes, I sent, 75 pitches on Upwork and I didn't get one client. You can feel confident about just writing that off and saying, this one is not for me. Joseph says, it's difficult for me to find stuff to post on social media platforms. What marketing tips do you have to stay consistent to bring in clients? So I know this is a common concern for a lot of people, but there are so many things that you can share on social media. A couple of easy ones that come to mind right away. Like I just posted on my LinkedIn today, my longest running SEO retainer client is wrapping up our relationship together after 10 years. So I use that as a way to talk about the demand for SEO writing. So you can talk about successes in that way. You can talk about myths that people believe. Like I might write something like, this is what people, really think an SEO writer does, but here's the reality behind it. You can talk about trends in your industry. So again, another example for writers right now would be to write about, how is AI changing the copywriting and content writing game? How can hiring a freelance writer still help you? You can give tips and tricks in your industry where you see your clients making mistakes. So a lot of my clients are lawyers. I might write a post on social media about how dangerous it is to have a you-focused website and how that doesn't speak to people who would want to hire you. So just start brainstorming also those questions that you answer for clients all the time. You know, what's the most effective way to work together? What is the value of the service that you provide? How long does it take to see an ROI from XYZ service? So I usually create a lot of my social media posts in bulk when I get those creative juices flowing about what can I talk about. I've talked about bad experiences my clients have had with other people or things like that. So you have a lot of ideas. It's just kind of sitting down and kind of pulling them together. And when it comes to consistency, doing a little every single week is far better than like, well, at the end of the month, I'm going to spend 6 hours marketing. Just start small. Be like, I'm going to do like 2 posts a week on social media, even 1 post a week, but I'm going to do it every week for the next 60 or 90 days. Then it will get you in the habit. You'll realize it's a little bit easier to build on. Okay. All right. Let me see if anyone else has any other questions. I don't see any other questions. I am going to look. I might have a resource on things to post on social. So I'm just going to see if I can pull that up. But feel free, anybody else who has other questions. Anything is fair game. So excited that you all are here. I love seeing how many people are just making freelancing work for them in industries and jobs that are so unique with technology. New things are being created all the time. Like, 15 years being a Facebook ads manager wasn't even like a real job. And like every day we're seeing things that are evolving and giving opportunities to people. So I hope what you take away from being in a group like this, where you're seeing lots of other ask questions and go through the same things, is that there are a lot of other people who are interested in similar goals and are making things work with their business too. So there's not really a wrong way to do it. Okay, I'm so glad everybody has had a good experience. So I'm getting their questions. What makes a pitch or proposal stand out? Sometimes I spend weeks preparing a proposal, so it can feel disheartening when you don't hear back. Okay, Gail, tough love. You never, ever, ever need to spend weeks preparing a proposal. This is one of the most common mindset traps that freelancers fall into. Wait too long to send something, and by that time, the client has forgotten about it or the message just doesn't resonate. So set a time limit when you have a good phone call with a client or a good intake email, and say, I'm sending this proposal in 3 days. I have 3 days, 72 hours to get this proposal to where I want it to be, but it goes out at noon on Friday. It goes out, I'm sending it, right? That holds you accountable, because what happens is you have a gut reaction of what you want to put in a proposal. You might not get it on your first draft. You might have a first draft and then spend a couple hours thinking about it and say, you know what? I don't like the package I provided, or I need to shift the pricing. But a lot of freelancers end up spending so much time undoing the good work they have already done in their proposal, they're backtracking. And it doesn't send a message of confidence to the client. It sends the message that either you don't know what you're doing, or you're taking too long to think about it, or you're really unsure if you want this client at all. And that's not good either, right? So give yourself a time limit on your future proposals. To make a pitch stand out, it's all about personalizing the message and telling the client what the stakes are for them. What are they going to achieve if they hire someone to help with this thing? Or what is at risk if they do not hire someone to help with this thing? That's one example. With a proposal, it's about taking what you have to offer as a freelancer and matching that with what the client said on the call. I keep notes of every call that I do with clients, and I use that to write my proposals. So the client may not come out directly and give me these clues, but they're going to drop gold nuggets throughout the entire conversation. They might say, oh, our last freelancer just didn't communicate. They ghosted us. We had no idea what was going on. I'm filing that away in my notes and mentally, so that when I go back to my proposal, I am making comments or suggestions about how we're going to work together that addresses that concern. So maybe I put in there, you'll receive a weekly report about my status on your project, what questions I have, and where I intend to go in the next 7 days. That hits right at one of the client's primary concerns, which was communication. So in your proposal, you always want to add some elements of things they talked about. If you ask them the question, what does a win look like in 3 months for you? You might weave that back into the proposal. Maybe they said, a win for us is having a fully functioning website that's ranked by the search engines and really speaks to our ideal clients. You might put in your proposal, as you talked about on the call, our goal is to make sure your website is up, running, and properly indexed and communicates to your clients within 90 days. Here's the action plan of how we're going to do that. So taking the client's own words and turning it back around on them is important. But I also challenge you with that timeliness. Respond to that client sooner rather than later. I'm also going to share this. This is just some ideas of some things to post about. This is kind of specific for LinkedIn, but these make great fodder for social media for clients as well. So what mistakes are costing your clients X result? Where most of your clients get it wrong, hiring freelancers. How have you had to adapt your business? Are you having problems with XYZ? Many case studies with results, changes in your industry. You can follow hashtags on LinkedIn, for example, to see what's trending. What every insert client here needs to know about, blah, 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 right? I've seen proofreaders, make memes and jokes about use of the Oxford comma, and they're sharing that on their social media. So think about things that are relevant to your industry. A voice actor might talk about the different ways that people learn with visual versus audio based content and how those two things can work together when you hire the right voice actor. So there's always material that's out there. And if it's easier for you to just sit down and brain dump a bunch of it, that might be one way to go about it where it feels less pressurized of in the moment. But I also pay attention to my actual client experiences. Do my clients, tell me something that sticks in my mind? Did they give me a piece of feedback that I can turn into a LinkedIn post? And the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get doing something like that.
Okay, is that any more questions for Laura? Well, I think that concludes our session today. Thank you so much for joining us. Laura, thank you so much for all this valuable content and answering all the questions. Before we sign off, I'd love to tell you more about Noumena's Rise Growth Program for freelancers. So feel free to reach out to us via the Noumena app if you're interested or want to know more about our Rise program. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Laura.
Stop the recording.